Welcome to the podcast, everyone. So today I've got on Stuart Hinds. He's a soft tissue therapist slash mentor slash content creator and educator. So it'd be a very interesting person to have on. So Stuart, would you like to explain a little bit about what you do? And
Yeah, not a problem, Lewis. Thanks for having me, mate.
you're
It's
very
it's
welcome.
my pleasure. It's good to get this off and rolling. I'm a soft tissue therapist. For most people, who probably don't know what a soft tissue therapist is. I studied in massage,
Okay.
and then along my journey, I started to work in elite sports. So I've been lucky enough to go to 4 Olympics with the Australian Olympic medical team. So when you're working in that environment, they don't classify you as massage therapist; they classify you as soft tissue therapist.
Okay.
So you sort of fill this void between like an osteo and a chiro. So it's very treatment based. So people come in with, say, a shoulder problem or a neck problem, and so I just work out and assess what's going on soft tissue wise, and then I address those. So I'm very treatment based. I'm not a person that you come in and just see and get a nice relaxing massage, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been in that space for 34 years now.
Wow.
Prior to that, I did a fitting and turning apprenticeship when I left school because I didn't know what I wanted to do,
Yeah,
like a lot of people
yeah,
at that
yeah,
age.
yeah, yeah.
And we can talk about that stuff as well. And
For
then,
sure.
so I filled that void. I started working in clinic here in Geelong and a few clinics up in Melbourne. And obviously I digressed into the sport, I suppose, the sports medicine world. And from there, I started to get involved in some lecturing as well. So I lectured at Victoria University for about 20 years
Wow.
and wrote a chunk of curriculum there. And then I moved into what we call sort of more of a postgraduate education role. So that's for, I suppose, therapists who have finished their undergraduate and now
Yeah.
they're out in clinic and working, and they want to upskill some of their knowledge and their treatment techniques. So I filled that space, and then from there that sort of like led on. I obviously started presenting at conferences and. That was sort of, whether it be our national conference or like there's a couple of associations that represent us. And then started doing some presenting overseas in the UK and then over to the US
Hmm.
and Singapore and yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so now I primarily 5 days in the clinic, and
Yeah.
I also run an educational and mentoring platform for therapists behind the scenes as well, mate, which I've been doing for, oh, God, time just slips away so fast, Lewis. Probably about 20 years now. So, when I first started that, the online world was a very different place to what it is now. Even
Yeah, for
Facebook
sure.
was different.
Mm.
And I run that. So obviously, I do a fair amount on YouTube and Insta and Facebook and all the other social
Yeah.
apps and so forth. So
Mm.
yeah, that's been quite a journey. So that fills my space.
Mm.
And I recently got married about 2 months ago, mate.
Oh
So
wow!
yeah,
Congratulations!
thank you.
Congratulations!
Yeah,
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome. So with the you've got various different things. What's your sort of favorite? Do you like the mentoring? Do you like the lecturing? Do you like educating other people, or do you like working one on one? But what's your favorite sort of
Oh,
area of
look,
that?
yeah, it's a great question, Lewis. I love it all.
Yeah.
Obviously, I started the educational platform because I saw a gap in the industry. That was
Okay.
the main thing. And what sort of evolved out of that was I was getting a lot of therapists calling me behind the scenes wanting, one-on-one
Yeah. Yeah.
advice.
Okay.
And that's where the mentoring sort of came in. And I was doing that sort of unofficially for years. And I had a client in one day, and I was working on it, and I think I was a little bit frustrated
Yeah. Okay.
because I seemed like I was doing a lot of this mentoring behind the scenes, and I wasn't getting paid for it. I was
Hmm.
doing it out of, for the
The
kindness of
goodness of
my own
your
heart,
heart.
if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he said, "Well, why don't you seem to be doing so much of it? Why don't you make a business out of it?" And that's where the sort of the mentoring sort of side of it came on. And so I started a Facebook group associated with the educational platform, and that sort of works as a forum, if you like. And it works beautifully. It's been amazing. But I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring sessions like this Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
where therapists will contact me and they'll have some specific, sometimes it's about setting up business. Um, Sometimes it's talking about treatment stuff. Sometimes it's a bit of both. I also do one-on-one sort of mentoring where I go and visit therapists as well, and I might spend a day with them and going through treatment techniques and bits and pieces. I fill a space in a few different areas, which I love. And then there's the educational, postgraduate workshops that I do, which, they're usually 2-day workshops where we'll fly to Newcastle and, there'll be 10 or 12 therapists and we run through a specific topic. But I love it all. I mean, for me, mentoring has always been a big part of it because there's a real lack of it in our industry. And that was my bare bug back in the day, was that there just wasn't enough mentoring going on. And so I thought, well, I've got enough knowledge and enough experience. So I just threw my hat in the ring and off it went. And it's been great, and I absolutely love it. It's an opportunity to build good relationships and friendships with other therapists in other areas, in other states and even overseas as well. So, so I love it all, mate. I do. And I still love clinic. I'm still in it 5 days a week. I'm sort of blessed on a few levels. Yeah.
There you definitely are, for sure, for sure. And then for someone that would be wanting to go down sort of this soft tissue therapy and sort of mentoring space and online sort of content creation and lecturing and all the things that you do, what piece of advice would you wish you'd got given to help you along your journey?
Yeah, it's great. No, another great question, mate. So look, I suppose one of the big thing for me was when I first started it off, you sort of have these ideas that you're going to make like a lot of money. I didn't actually set out to make money. It wasn't about making money. It was about filling a void that I was passionate about. And obviously money is
important.
It helps. I actually don't have a real healthy respect for money. It's not what drives me. Do you know what I mean? So I'm passionate about that area. But one thing that I learned straight away was once we started the platform that I knew that I had to put as much money as I could back into it. And pretty much most of the money that I made out of it for the first 5 years, I put straight back into the platform. So now I actually have a team. I've got a business manager that looks after the business side of things. I've got an IT guru that looks after funnels and back-end educational, setting up websites, all that sort of stuff. And then I've got another IT guy who's come from television and so forth, and he does all my social media. So there is just as a big part of the platform as I am. I mean, I just provide the technical stuff, and then I've got all these people in the background that do these things. So I basically built the platform up so that I could have that team around me. And there's just to be honest, Lewis, there's no way I could run the platform if I didn't have those people. So putting a lot of money and time and effort back into it was the absolute key. And, I've had other therapists who have approached me and said, Stu, I love what you do. I'd like to do something similar. And I said, well, you have to know it's going to be a lot of time. It's going to be a lot of effort, and you'll need a team around you to make it successful, basically. Yeah. So, putting back into it was a big key, and you'll probably notice that with anyone that starts off a business, especially if it's their own business. From the get go, you've got to invest back into it, and that's a big part of it, mate. And the other thing is, you're going to stuff it up, right? You're going to make mistakes, and you got to learn from those mistakes. That's the most important thing, And part of failing is a big part of succeeding as well. So, the worst thing you can do is not learn from your mistakes. And I certainly did, well, shit, that didn't work, I threw a heap of money at that. That didn't work. So, righto, I need to understand that. And then, you've just got to ride the triumphs and then the pitfalls, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking about the triumphs and the pitfalls and the failures, what's been your biggest, not necessarily failure, but your biggest struggle with everything sort of business-wise and over the years?
Consistency, mate.
Being consistent with your business, being
consistent with it. That's another big part of it in this space, which you'll know. I mean, like this social space, YouTube and so forth. You see people you see people come and go. And I suppose when I started off, and the team that I had, one of the things the IT guys were saying is, look, um, you've just got to remain consistent. Do you know what I mean? You've got to put consistent content out and consistently good content. And if you binge in that content, then the problem is that you sort of lose the momentum of what you're trying to build. So being consistent in that space. So if, like, let's say, for instance, if you're posting something once a month on Facebook, you're not much is really going to happen. So if you post something consistently, like once a week, and it's reasonable good content as well, you'll get the benefits. And it's almost like, Lewis, it's a cascading effect. You build from one week to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, if you know what I mean.
Like it compounds over time.
Yeah, and it compounds over time. And people then start to invest in your journey or what you're talking about or what your message is. So I'd have to say consistency has been the key. And I know in the early years I was very up and down with that. And, after I got these other people on board, they said, look, don't worry about all this other stuff that you're worrying about. Just be consistent in what you're doing. And that's the real key. And, trying to stay fresh with content is a hard one too. I mean, I've watched a lot of your stuff and I love it. It's great. It's bloody fantastic, mate. I mean, Jesus, I wish I was as mature as you as you are at your age, mate. Like, 'cause back in the day I wasn't, but just having the content that's basically it's gonna reach your audience and it's gonna get the message that you want to put across. And people will invest in one thing, and they invest in passion. And if your passion comes across, you're halfway there. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be passionate about what you do. My tag for my online platform is, be awesome at what you do, not what I do, but what you do. Because we're all different, mate. Like, you don't want to carbon copy Lewis Reid and you don't want to carbon copy Stuart Hinds, but you want people to take parts of what you do in your journey and apply it into wherever they're going and what they're doing, if it's their fitness and so forth. And as you know, fitness is, I've been in that, I'm in that world. I do a lot of work with PTs. I do a lot of work with strength and conditioning coaches, and any exercise regimes is literally about consistency, and that's a big part for me. My fitness is incredibly important for me because, I reached a stage in my career where I literally burnt out.
Right.
And I was road cycling at the time, and I was competing and so forth. I was training a lot, and I was working as well, and it wasn't really great because I was slowly just burning myself out physically. And I reached a point where I was in a race and I got a really bad gastro, and I probably shouldn't have raced, but I did, and I fell in a real hole, physical hole actually. And I was probably 60 kilos at the time.
That's light.
And not ideal. And I was actually treating a PT at the time, and he came in one day for treatment. He could see I was struggling, and he goes, "Mate, you're not looking good. What's going on?" And I'm sort of explained to him, what happened. I said, "Oh, I'm really fatigued at the end of the day. My hands are aching, and I'm not in a good place." And he goes, "All right, well, I can help you out here for sure." He says, give me 6 months to work with you, and I'll get you back on track. And he did. So, he introduced me to weight resistance training, changed my diet, and it was an absolute game changer. And now I've been probably working out 3-4 times a week for the last, 25 plus years, stacked on some muscle, up my protein, all that sort of stuff. And it's a game changer. And it's probably the only real reason why I'm still able to treat now 34 years down the track. Most people have exited out of my industry by that stage, and I'm still in good physical condition, and that's primarily because of my own fitness. Yeah.
It's so important, isn't it? It's so
it's everything, mate. It's everything. Yeah.
I think also once that gets let go, other things start to fall back with it. I kind of noticed that with myself as well. And
Yeah,
you know, yeah, you just sort of fall behind because you're not building yourself physically. You're not getting the endorphins out and the good serotonin levels and all that. Yeah, it's so important.
100%. That, and those endorphins are addictive, and, we talk about consistency, and that consistency with your fitness is so important. And I think the other thing as well, don't invest in anyone else's. That's the thing with social media. You can get on there and you can look at what other people are doing, and you can start to focus on
Yeah.
what they're doing, and you're comparing yourself to them, going, "Oh, geez, I should be doing that. I should be doing this," and like that's the worst thing in the world to do. You have to focus on what you can control, and that's your journey and what you do. Yeah, sure, take inspiration from other people, but don't get into that shit world of comparing yourself to others and thinking, well, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And a lot of the athletes that I treat, they do that. You'd be the
Mm,
triathletes going, oh, my competitor's doing this, this, and that. Maybe I'm like, no, don't go down that rabbit hole. No,
yeah.
just
Okay.
concentrate on what you do, and the rest will all fall in line.
Mm,
So yeah, that's a big one. And look, how many people have a love-hate relationship with their fitness? Everyone does. You get out of bed and you go,
I
I
do
don't
not
know,
want to
you
do
had a shit
this.
night's sleep, your
Yeah.
headspace is not in a good place for whatever reasons, and you're like, oh, I don't really feel like working out. But look, I'll be honest with you, that's the time you actually have to get on there and get out there and do fitness. And just you don't need to beat yourself up with it. You just need to get out there and do it. And as you know, once you finish that, those endorphins kick back in and they just take you out of that dumb space. And once again, it comes down to consistency. And I don't even think about it, like I go at a certain time every week, and it's just part of my routine.
Mm,
I go in between lunchtimes on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have Thursday off, and then Friday. And I
mm,
just finish my client at 12 o'clock. I go into the bathroom, get changed, walk down to the gym. I'm there for 45 minutes. I'm back, showered, have a bit of food, and then I'm into my afternoon sessions. And it's just routine. I
mm.
just I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's like a sweet spot. Like to do it over and over again to the point where it becomes just kind of ingrained in what you do and your sort of your system and your routine. I think that's a very, very important part of it. It takes a while
How
to
do
do
you?
that though. It takes a
Yeah,
long
it
time to
does.
get to
I
that
mean,
point.
and I'll ask you this. I'll ask you this
Yeah, go
question.
for it.
How do you go with your fitness regime? Like, how do you do
Yeah.
you do you do you do it at the same time every day, or does it vary depending on what's going on? Because
Yeah. So it's usually I try to do something every day. I think it's just
yep,
good for my just up here and sort of keep pushing myself and keep challenging myself. So every
yep,
day it's sort of like, yeah, 8:30 in the morning I sort of go with a friend. I usually pick him up or usually picks me up, and then we go down to the gym, go for about an hour and a half, and then I kind of do that sort of, yeah, 6 days a week. And then on the sort of rest day I kind of either go for a run or go for a walk or do something physical. I think it just helps with everything else, just falls in line after that. Once the good habits of that start to come through, the eating clean comes after that, and then the
yeah,
reading and other things.
yeah.
So it's all kind of like habit stacking. You've probably heard of that before, and
And that's
yeah,
that's exactly, it's funny, you talk about the eating, like, and once again, like, what you're putting in, if you're not putting the right things in, you're not going to get the benefits of what you do exercise wise.
exactly,
So, and I
exactly.
mean, look, you've got a couple of days to play with it. You're going to have Saturday and a Sunday where you can have some cheat meals and whatever the case may be. But then you fall back into that routine. Do you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
like, yep, Monday comes,
yeah,
I'm back into it. I eat the same stuff. I know what I'm eating,
yeah,
da da da. And once again, it comes back to that consistency, isn't it? Getting your head in that space of consistency.
yeah. I completely agree with you. And the thing with consistency, I find is if you show up every day, putting in effort, like something's gonna happen, something's gonna fall in place. If you're training every day, like you're gonna lose weight or you're gonna get in better shape over time. It's just about the consistency is so important. So I'm glad that that we can definitely agree on that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it is everything. Yeah,
yeah,
because as you well know, in anything in life, if you binge at it, then it's hard to keep the journey alive.
yeah,
Because the ebbs are high and then the lows are low, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So you have the high highs, which is great, and I'm here, I'm sparkling, and then all of a sudden, bang, you don't see me, I'm nowhere, I don't know
yeah,
what's going on. You know
yeah,
what I mean? If you can just keep that consistency and that same level, that is the key.
yeah. And then when the I think this happens to everyone. It's happened to me quite a few times. When the negative thoughts come in, when like the sort of self-doubt, when the failures keep stacking on and you think like, gosh, I don't know how much longer I can go with this. I don't know how many more tries I can give this. What do you say to yourself? Is this something that you do? Do you just,
Yeah,
yeah.
wow. That's the meaning of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's mate. Yeah, like wow. I think look, for me, one of the things if I'm in that world, what I like to do is I like to go back and have a look at my journey if I'm in a low spot. So I'll go back and watch a couple of YouTube stuff or some educational stuff I've done, and it all of a sudden it'll just fire me back up again because it takes me back to I'll look at myself and I'll go, wow, I was on one there, wasn't I? I was
Yeah,
passionate
yeah,
about
yeah,
that. Do you
yeah.
know what I mean? And I think for me that's what works. I know it's different for everyone, but I honestly like going back, looking at some old stuff, and it puts me back in that headspace again.
Right.
And it's hard to see. One of the hardest things is to keep the content fresh and motivating and inspirational. And I think that's the key. Like, where are you going to draw your inspiration from? And not everyone wants to hear that you're having the greatest day in the world either.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? Because
mm,
everyone's like, God, this guy's on, and he's just always, he's pumped up. You've got to share the good and the bad. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
And sometimes that may be a reflection on something that you stuffed up or whatever. You've got to show people the human side of you. And I think so where it's a little bit shit sometimes, social media, because you can look on people's, Instas and stuff and just think that they're having the best life in the world. And, the behind the scenes, it's not like that. People like to see people, not necessarily in pain or struggling, but just going, yep, look, today I'm having a low day. I'm blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like showing the
And then
authentic
saying,
side, showing the real side of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that, like, I don't think there's any better message than that to show people that you are human and that you don't have all the
Mm,
goddamn answers.
yeah.
That goes for anyone. Everyone goes through that. I mean, everyone goes through that, and
Mm,
I've been lucky enough to do podcasts with people who are super, super successful and so forth, and they've got the same message as everyone else.
mm,
Their days they have shit days as well, and they have great days, and some days they just don't feel like they want to meet the world at all, and what motivates them to get out of bed in the morning and get on with the day. So yeah, once again, that answer to that question is I like to revisit where I've been, my good places, and that's usually enough to just spark me off.
mm,
You could go back through your feed and go, man, look at that
yeah.
day, I was doing A, B, C,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
D,
yeah, yeah.
and hopefully that's enough just to transition you across to getting you back in that headspace again. And the other thing is too. Look, I'm the eternal optimist, right? So I always see the good and the positive. I always have, and I'm lucky that I have that.
Mm,
So at the end of every day, for me, I'll do a bit of a mental check,
okay.
and I'll focus on what were the good things that happened. What were the
Mm,
positive things that came out of that day? I don't go, oh shit, this happened. That was shit. That was shit. Do you know what I mean? No, I take check at the end of the day and go, right, what happened great today? What wins did I have today? What was the positive aspects of my day? And I focus on those, and I don't focus on the negatives. I focus on the negatives when I need to learn from them, but I'm not going to dwell on them, and I'm not going to let them bring me down. So every day I'll do a mental check, and I'll just go, right, what were the positive things that happened today? What I have a great conversation with my kids. I don't know, petrol was cheap
yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah.
I know I'm a food today. I had a good workout. I, had a couple of really great wins with clients. Had a great conversation with a mate. Do you know what I mean? So, it can be anywhere through your day. You just got to try and check in on those positives.
100%. I agree with that a lot. And then it's a hard question to answer, but what is the best piece of advice you've got? And also, what is the worst piece of advice you've got? It could be life advice, it could be business
Yeah,
advice, it
no,
could be
I know.
anything.
Yeah, what's the best piece of advice? Well, probably the best piece of advice I ever got was be yourself. Do
Okay.
you know what I mean? Don't try and be anyone else.
Mm,
Just be yourself, and show your passion,
Right.
they resonate for me today. There's no doubt about it. Just I'm not trying to be anyone else. I take inspiration from other people. There's no doubt about that. Like I mentioned that beforehand, but just like seriously, just be yourself is probably the best one. And once again, we've talked about that. The consistency is the key. Try and remain consistent. And look at the positives at the end of the day. That there once worst piece of advice I've ever got was probably that the fact that I was going to make millions of dollars out of the educational platform. They're going, oh yeah, you'll be able to make this and do that and do all this sort of, and that was just bullshit.
Right.
I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm lucky enough that I've got some really great mentors around me. So I invest in them. So investing in mentors is a big key.
Yeah.
And just, putting the bullshit, learning to put the bullshit aside and focus on the things that you need to be focusing on and not getting, misdirected. They're all the bits of gold. Do you know what I mean? And there's a couple of really good books out there that have been quite inspirational for me, and I'm sure you've probably read a few. It's good to invest in those things as well.
What are some of those books, if you don't mind?
What was it? 4 Hour Work Week
Oh,
by
yeah.
Tim Ferriss
Yeah,
was
that's a
a
great
game changer for me. And not that I was going to work 4 hours a week
Yeah,
or anything
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, but there were so many great take homes from that book, and I read it really early on. 10,000 Hours by Malcolm Gladwell.
I've heard of that. I haven't
Takes
read it, but
10,000
yeah.
hours to be an expert in
Okay.
anything.
Yeah.
That was a game changer for me. There's probably a few other books, but those two were pretty pivotal for me in terms of understanding the direction and what I wanted to go and what I wanted to achieve. Once again, I didn't want to be Tim Ferriss, but I liked the values and the stuff that he did. I mean, he is a nut.
He is. He is a bit of a nut, isn't he?
He is a nut, but kudos to him. Do you know what I mean? And I think what was the other one he put out? Tools of Titans, which was
Heard of that.
another really great book that he put out. But mate, there's chunks of them. Do you know what I mean? There's so many to name, but they're probably the main ones for me from an inspirational point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. What is there any other book would you say that's like been a big changer for you apart from the 4 Hour Work Week? Not necessarily by Tim Ferriss, but by anyone. Like,
No, yeah. I'm just trying to draw on them now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a chunk of books at work. You should see, I'm a bit of a collector of books.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm just trying. Like, do you know what I mean? I read a lot of autobiographies as well.
Okay.
And I think the one that really resonated for me, and actually, when I say books, audio books are great.
Yeah.
I'm not a massive reader, but I can listen to audio books, And I don't know if you've listened to Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography.
I actually haven't.
It's a cracker, and he
sure
made, do you know what? Like, the thing is, like, I mean, he was awesome in bodybuilding. There's no doubt about that. But he actually made his first million in real estate, and it wasn't out of bodybuilding. And
Really?
it's 100%. And a lot of people don't know that.
No.
He was successful in bodybuilding, but he didn't make much money out of it. There wasn't much money
Not in those
back
days.
in the day.
No.
And, he wrote books and all that sort of stuff. And it's sort of, like back then it was a real niche market, the bodybuilding world. So they were still looked at as freaks, to be honest. But yeah, when he got to America and so forth, like he's bloody inspirational. He had to learn English. He always had that accent. Everyone said he'd never make it in Hollywood, but someone got into his head and said, look, the best thing you can do is invest in real estate. So, and that's what he did. And he literally made his first million in real estate. And that actually afforded him to go into movies. And he didn't have to actually, he wasn't relying on getting movie roles. So he was in this really great area where he just thought, well, I'm just going to do acting courses. I'm going to do English courses. I'm going to try and make the best possible position out of where he was because he
Yeah.
was financially okay, and the real estate stuff that he had going was just banking up in the background. So it was a successful business, and that was running on the side. The movies was just a passion for him, and so do yourself a favour and listen to that one. It's a pretty inspirational.
It's a really good idea. I'll definitely go and check that out. And then back to the point about money that you're making before, when you were sort of saying that money isn't really kind of what drives you. Obviously, it's important, but it's not really what drives you. What necessarily does drive you if the money isn't really the obviously it's not the be all and end all, but it's important to have, I guess. But yeah, what sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
drives you?
yeah, yeah. Well, money is important. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it because it affords you to do the things that you want to do. Do you know what I mean? But
Mm.
um, I think the love of money is can be quite evil.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because look, to be honest, Lewis, if I had the love of money, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I'd be a
Mm.
stockbroker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I'd be in the financial world, and I know those people. I've treated those people who are merchant bankers. They, work overseas. They
mm.
usually burn themselves out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's usually pretty horrific, to be honest.
yeah.
Um, but what drives me is the passion for what I do. Do you know what
Mm.
I mean? And like I was just talking to my wife before on the before we did the podcast was, we're talking about my kids are the same age as you to a certain
Mm, mm.
degree, and they're all looking for what their direction in life is.
Yeah,
Do you know what
yeah.
I mean? There's these we've got a cluster of young people in our lives, her kids, my kids,
Mm.
and the like, and they're like, well, I'm not really sure what my direction is in life, they're searching for that passion, to find that passion of what's going to drive me. I was a fitter and turner when I left school, and I knew in the second year of it, I'm like, shit, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't love it. Like, there's got to be more to life out there for me. And I finished that apprenticeship and I moved on and I went over to Western Australia, worked in the mines, came back, and then I fell into massage. I found by chance, do you know what I mean? And it just gravitated to me. I don't know why. It was just like a light bulb hit me and I thought, this is amazing. I can help
Mm.
people just with my hands and my head. And I
Mm.
thought that's pretty cool,
That is pretty cool.
And then like I've never looked at my work as work. I love going
That's
to work and
awesome.
help and helping people. It was just nuts. I just thought, this is bullshit. I'm getting paid for this and I love doing it. Like
Yeah.
I just love doing it. It's not work for me.
Mm.
And I love the challenge of people coming in saying, look, Stu, I've got this, this, and this, and then trying to work out,
How to
I've got a
fix it?
skill
Yeah,
set
yeah.
and how I can help them. And it's incredible to be able to touch people for a living. I think it's pretty cool that I get that ability to literally physically touch people and help them perform better. So, I love that. And so, finding that passion it's bloody hard. Like it doesn't just come to you. You think
Yeah.
back, mate, when you're at school. Do you go to Christian college?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you're in year 11, year 12. Everyone's asking you what you're going to do
Yeah.
and what's the plan. You going to uni? What are you doing? No one has any idea what
Yeah.
they're going to flame and do. Like shitloads. I didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
My kids still don't know exactly what they
Yeah.
have passion in their life, certain things. But can I make a living out of that?
Mm.
I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So,
Mm.
um,
It's a hard decision
yeah,
to make. It really is. It really is.
it's difficult, mate, and it's even harder for this generation coming through now because because of this. Do you know what I mean? So once again, you get sucked into other people's world and seeing people being successful and amazing and doing all this sort of shit. And, you think, oh, well, then I'm a bit of a failure because I don't have anything. Do you know, like I don't have any direction or passion or I'm not even on a journey. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I think, the hardest thing to do is just, you've got to, one thing is you've got to surround yourself with people who make you feel good about yourself.
Right.
That's that. So finding good friends and I classify good friends are people who make you make the right choices in life and make you feel good about yourself.
Mm.
Um, that's my classification for friends, and you don't need a million friends. I reckon if you can have, a handful of really close friends or mates, I think that's all you need in your life. And then you have your family and so forth behind you. Um, I feel like, when you grow up and if you have kids or whatever, I don't think you can empower your kids enough
Mm,
these days. I think it's pretty easy to fuck kids up, to be
mm,
honest.
mm.
You just see it a lot. You see it a
Yeah.
lot. Like, I mean, anyone can be a parent, but yeah, building friendships with your kids is a big part. Yeah, you got to be a parent, but
Mm,
building friendships is a big key, because they're going to
mm,
turn out. They're going to be 18 one day, and they're going to choose to whether they hang out with you or see you or like
mm,
you. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
So, you know, you know, I, there's just it's hard to find that passionate. Like my son is passionate about rock climbing. Do you know what
mm,
I mean? And he absolutely loves, and Ed does to a certain
yeah,
degree too
yeah.
as
I've
well.
heard about that. Yeah.
But he's looking at at potentially a job somewhere where he can combine that. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So, and I'm going, mate, you go for it. Just if you're
yeah,
passionate
yeah,
about it,
yeah.
you'll never have to think about work as work.
Mm,
And not everyone finds it, Lewis. There's a
mm,
lot of people out there, and jobs and
mm,
stuff that they friggin' hate. They drag themselves out of bed to go and
mm.
do it.
It's kind of scary. It's a trap that you don't really want to fall down. I mean, no offense, people that that do. Of course,
Yeah,
everyone.
no, I
Lots of
know.
jobs that are very very needed, but it's just it would just sort of suck to be in a job that you'd hate for the rest of your life. It's kind of a bit of a fear of mine, I'm sure. It's a fear of a lot of people's as well. It's
Yeah, well,
difficult to try and
you are the master of your own destiny.
yeah.
So the lucky thing is that you've got control of that. It's just making it work for you and finding that passion, and
Mm,
you're sort of doing it. To some degrees, you're at the
mm,
start of that journey. You've got yourself in a good space physically. You
mm,
got yourself in a pretty good space mentally. You'll have good
yeah,
days and bad days.
yeah.
You just got to get up in the morning and get on with your consistency. Draw inspiration from
Mm,
wherever it is. Share your journey. Be yourself. That they're the keys. Do you know what I mean? And
mm,
if you can stay physically fit, that's a good spot for your head. That's a great spot for your mental health.
it sure is. You're very right. And I feel like a lot of I'm not of course young girls are in the same boat as well, but I think a lot of young guys I've noticed are very sort of like lost and sort of directionless at the moment, sort of not knowing what to do. There's so much sort of advice out there. There's lots of people telling them to do certain things, and their parents saying to do this, and then the school saying to do this, and like, what would you say to a young guy that sort of the online world, the content creation world. What,
Oh
what would you
yeah,
say
I
to a
do.
guy if you were, I don't know, 19 in this day and age? What would you sort of, what advice would you give to
Well,
that 19-year-old
yeah,
basically?
yeah. Well, I mean, and I'd probably draw a little bit from my own experience as a parent as well. But I mean, it's look, I'm actually a massive fan of the gap year, to be honest. Do you
Okay,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And for a couple of reasons. I think the first one why I'm a massive fan of a gap year is there's a lot happening when you turn 18, right? You get
yeah.
your license,
You're
um, you know,
drinking and yeah,
drinking, all that sort of stuff. All of a sudden you're classified as an adult.
yeah.
So you get all of a sudden there's a massive, massive amount of independence thrown on you as 18. And I think why I like the gap year a little bit, unless you're absolutely driven to do whatever you want to do, and that's fine, go for it. Do you know what I mean? Is it's nice to take that year or 2 years or whatever the case may be and just find yourself as an adult.
Okay,
Like just go out and work. You don't have to do a job that's going to be your career job. That's
yeah,
probably not going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Just go and experience life as an adult from at that 18. You've got your car. Maybe you've got a part-time job or a full-time job, so now you've got money. There's responsibilities that come with that. Now you've
mm,
got to pay for petrol and this and
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
God forbid, travel is a good thing. I think
I
I
agree.
love
Yeah,
young people traveling. It just gives you so much life experience.
yeah,
It sort of throws you out into the world, and it's sort of like it throws adversity at you a little bit, but at the same time, it inspires you to see other cultures, and other landscapes and other people, and there's so much to be learnt about that. And if you can do that, I think
mm,
that's great. I think it's great to just enjoy life as an adult for a couple of years,
right,
and it gives you. The other thing is that it give you insight in. It gives you reflection about your what you've gone through at school
Mm.
and what you perceived your life was going to be once school was finished.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
true.
some of those things are probably not going to be important. You're out there going, God, yeah, I was focusing on that, wasn't I, before, thinking that I'm going to do that, that, and that. And, you've enjoyed, you've experienced a little bit of life. You've traveled a bit, you've worked, you've got this independence.
Mm.
Your scope of your thoughts and and your goals and stuff will change probably.
Definitely.
So I'm a massive fan of that from that
Yeah,
point of
yeah.
view. And I'm, God forbid, there's parents out there going, "Oh, kids going to uni, and I
Yeah,
want this and that's
yeah,
it." But
yeah, yeah.
the thing is, a lot of kids do. I know my son had a couple of mates who went straight into uni after school, and they all dropped out of uni. They're all deferred now, or
Mm.
dropped out completely. Because they were disillusioned. They went, "Oh, well, this isn't what I thought it was, and I actually don't have the passion." You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
and once again, investing in good friends is pretty cool.
yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
You got a
And
couple of
yeah.
good mates?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
Well,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's it's very, very important. I think it's probably one of the most important things to surround yourself with people that are also on the same journey to you. They're trying to achieve similar things because you can talk about it, you can bounce ideas off each other. You can say, oh, I've got an idea about this, or why don't we try this? Or especially with guys that are into fitness as well, people that have that sort of that growth mindset. I've found
yeah,
those people are very, very great to be around because you're sort of on this similar path to bettering yourselves.
yeah.
And
Because there'll be plenty of people. I mean, there'll be lots of people shit canning you.
100%,
I don't know.
yeah,
There'll be people you possibly went to school with who go, "Oh,
yeah,
what's he doing? He's a wanker." Like da 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 da. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
And a lot of those people are. Look, to be honest, Lewis, that comes from a place of well, a little bit of it's envy and
yeah.
jealousy. I mean, you're not sprouting anything that's destructive to people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
you're
yeah,
about like,
yeah.
let's be a better version
It's
of
like
myself.
pro
Well, let's
pro people. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, let's be the best version of myself as I can. And that's quite confronting for some people because they don't have that relationship with themselves.
mm,
So the first thing that most people do will poo-poo it. They'll just shit can it because they'll think, well,
what's he doing?
you know, it seems like he's got all the answers.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. But when,
if you
yeah,
listen to my message, I don't have all the
yeah,
answers.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
So I mean, so it's a journey, and it's a journey that you're investing in yourself and you're investing in others, and
Mm,
and those people that you do invest in will probably have the same common goals. But there will be people out there that'll try and tear you down, or people who want to drag you back.
that's so
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I want to drag you back because, I remember Lewis back in the day and
At
you weren't
school,
like this, mate.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
it's almost like, come back to the fold.
yeah.
But,
How would you go about navigating that when, say, for example, maybe your old friend group is thinking a certain way and they're wanting you to come back to where they are, but you're trying to set a different path to your life than maybe they are, or you're trying to do different things, and you're, by extension of that, you feel different to them, and you want to find other people, other guys that are on the same path as you. What would you, when you're in that transition period, what would you do? Would you fully go for the new transition period, or would you sort of stay back with the friends that you have now until you find a whole new group? What would you do in that?
oh, mate, honesty's the key here.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean? Like I said to you before, you surround yourself with people who make you feel good about yourself. If that old haunt doesn't make you feel good about yourself, then you just got to be honest with them, to a
mm,
certain degree. But not don't be a smart ass about it.
yeah,
Go,
yeah, for
hey mate, I
sure.
really value your friendship. I really do. I love hanging out with you. You're great. But
Yeah,
I'm trying to change my life. Obviously I've had my issues and so forth, and I'm
mm,
going down this road. I still want to hang out with you and do stuff, but I'm just not up to doing A, B, C, and D. But I still value our friendship, like I really do, I'd like to, I'd like to keep that friendship and so forth. So, it's a bit of a velvet sledgehammer. You
yeah,
know, if you find those people that you do resonate with, but they've got habits that you don't want to invest in, and
mm,
you've got new habits, then you sort of just got to be honest about where you're at. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like I don't like you anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
completely.
that my journey, where I'm going at the moment is down this road, and some of that stuff, whether it be partying or taking drugs or whatever the case may be, and I get that's all part of life and
Yeah,
experimentation
yeah.
at that age, but I'm honest here. Like I'm just going in a different direction, and you can be honest about it. You go, like, when I used to do that, I was never in a good headspace after it. Do you know what I mean? Like it really messed with my mental health, and I'm going down this road because it's putting my mental health in a good place.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I'm doing it. And it's not because I don't like you anymore, or I don't want to da. I value you. Like I said, once again, I value your friendship, and
Yeah.
and I'll still want to be friends with you. It's just that you have to accept that I'm going down this road, and yeah, that
Mm.
honesty's the key, mate.
Yeah.
You're not, you don't want to sugarcoat too much in regards to which direction you're going. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
But at the same time, you don't want to throw it back in people's face and make them feel
Bad
not
about
valued,
themselves. They're not
or
valued. Yeah, yeah. For sure,
you
for
know,
sure.
So that's why it's so important that you emphasize that you do value their
Mm.
friendship. Do you know what I mean? And I
Mm.
don't, and you're not. You don't want to be preaching to them either. It's like,
No.
well, unless you do this, this, and this, then I'll be your friend. It's like, well,
They
it'll
would
be
just reject that, and yeah, exactly. They'd throw the finger up at you,
they'll
100%.
go, you're a cockhead.
Yeah, one hundred
You know what I
percent.
mean? Yeah. So you got to just be honest, I suppose, Lewis.
Mm.
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
you're on a different path and a different journey, and yeah,
100%. Yeah.
it's a
And
beautiful journey.
it is a beautiful journey, isn't it? It's exciting and scary at the same time, but yeah,
Yeah.
well
And you know
worth it.
what? It
Yeah.
should be exciting and it should
Yeah.
be scary. It
Yeah.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think sort of a lot of guys sort of in the sort of self-improvement space are kind of confused about kind of what is a man, what should a man be doing in terms of, because things are changing, like roles are different nowadays, the modern world is kind of pushing certain things towards guys, and it makes there's a big group of guys that are feeling quite lost from that and not sure about their place and like what they should be doing. Should they be wanting to, like, I don't know, provide and sort of protect and kind of be that sort of traditional masculine man, or are they trying to move towards the more sort of like sort of progressive ways? What would you say to a young guy? It's like, would you say focus on this, or do you not understand the question or not? Does that
No,
make
no, I do.
sense?
No, 100% I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, life as a man is completely different to when my father grew up to
Yeah.
where my son's at,
Yeah.
and I'm all in between that as well. Like the roles of men has definitely changed. There's no doubt about it. I mean,
Mm.
my mantra, you give love to get love,
Okay.
has always been my mantra.
Yeah.
I mean, I adore my wife. I make sure that she feels adored.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We are an equal partnership. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I invest in her happiness,
Yeah. That's good.
and I make sure that she understands how important she is to me in my life. It's and I, it's relationships are different, but at the end of the day, they're still the same thing. You give love to
Mm.
get love. Do you know what I mean? And people, where relationships break down is, I suppose, there's a breakdown of that. People, if they're not getting it with from their partner, then obviously they go elsewhere to find it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's
And
true.
I'm not using that as an excuse or whatever, but um, you've just got to give love to get love, and I think for young men, definitely the roles have changed, as protector and provider and all that. I mean,
Mm.
those days have gone.
Mm.
Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm.
God, I know I've got young guys that I treat who are home hubbies. Do you know what I mean? They look
Mm.
after the kids, and the wife's, the
Mm.
breadwinner and so forth.
Mm.
So those roles have definitely changed, but
Mm.
that's something that they mutually agree upon, and
Right. Yeah.
that it works, and that's great. But you've once again, you just got to try and focus on being the best
Best you. Yeah.
version of you, and hopefully, Lewis, you find someone that just
complements
loves that
that.
version of you.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? And you want to love people for who they are, not for what they could be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's and it's married. There's a high, like there's a massive rate of divorce now. I obviously went through
Yeah,
divorce
I was
myself.
gonna mention that.
And
Mm.
you've got to think. If you get young, if you get married, in your 20s, mid 20s, whatever, late 20s, you got to understand that person in your mid 20s is going to be a different person when you're in your 40s. Do you know what I mean? You look back at yourself and you go, wow. And what
Yeah.
happens is, you go along that journey together, and you grow.
Mm.
That's what happens in life. You
Mm.
grow, but hopefully you grow together. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? And you're investing in each other. What happens sometimes is you grow, but you grow apart. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm.
you end up going off in different directions. You have different wants and needs and
Mm.
desires in life. So if they don't align, then that's when that path starts to vary.
Mm.
And it's in communication is a massive part of that as well.
Mm.
So being open and honest and having those clear, objectives of where your journey's going as a couple is
Yeah.
pretty important. And I mean, for young men, you've got to, it is sometimes very difficult.
Mm.
I'd hate to think what I would be like growing up in
Mm.
this, in this, this time. It would be
Mm.
very difficult.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah.
part of that problem is, as I said, social media, Lewis.
Mm.
People are investing in other people's journey and not their own.
Mm. That's so true. Kind of becoming, yeah, you're very right with that. Very right. I feel like it's quite, it's quite difficult because, say, for example, you do want that kind of like somewhat traditional lifestyle where you want to sort of be maybe I guess the breadwinner as a guy, and like in the modern world that's kind of frowned upon nowadays. Not saying it's like
Mm,
it's some guys want that and they really really want that and they think it'll be a
yeah,
great lifestyle for them, and then some people say, well, you shouldn't want that because that's toxic masculinity or that sort of you shouldn't be doing that. What's your opinion on that?
yeah. Well, that's debated, mate. It's
Yeah, it's a
debated, and
bit.
it'll continue to
Yeah,
be debated.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do see it. It does happen. There's no doubt
Mm,
about it. But I've never fed into it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, okay,
Because primarily for me, I'm pretty happy with the person I am.
good.
I'm pretty happy with the direction that I'm going, and I've, for all intents and purposes, fucked things up in my life, and I've learnt from them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I may get them wrong in the future as well. But in terms of how I see myself as a man is, I don't necessarily see myself as the provider, but I see
Right.
myself in a partnership with someone that I
Mm,
love, um, well, complicitly. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? And it is a partnership for me. So I yeah, it's a difficult
It
one
is
to
difficult. Yeah.
navigate if you start taking on some of those
Mm,
roles. Like it's if you find a beautiful partner, and I say partner because it could be men, women, whatever the
mm,
case, same
mm,
sex, whatever. Do you know
mm,
what I mean?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's fantastic now we're in this day and age, because back in my day there was a lot of homophobia.
Mm,
That you just find someone that resonates and loves you for who you
mm,
are and makes you feel good about who you are and
mm,
where you're going, and that's mate, that's the key, I
mm.
reckon. Um,
So you'd say like
yeah,
improving yourself, finding someone else that's respecting your improvement and kind of respecting the journey that
100
you're on,
100%.
and someone that can like you
Someone,
can work
find
together.
someone who loves Lewis Reid for who he is,
Yeah.
not for what he could be, or
Mm,
try and change him, or vice versa. If you
mm,
find someone who resonates with you and you think, oh yeah, she could be good, but here's a couple of things I need to change.
mm,
Do you know
mm.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It can be quite
what?
dangerous having that mentality of trying to change someone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, who wants to? I mean, apart when we talk about change, I mean, apart from people who have got destructive habits
Mm,
that affect themselves and the people around them,
mm,
that's when change needs to happen. Do you know
mm.
what I mean? But if you're changing someone just because you want to appease your own desires and your own wants and your own needs,
It's not good.
that's a different story. Yeah.
Mm,
Does that
yeah.
help? I mean,
No,
I
no, no. 100%. That's a yeah, good answer. Yeah. Those things are yeah. It's important to understand like who you are as well and like what you're trying to achieve and where you're going, and then you can once you know what you're doing, you can sort of find someone else that can complement that and yeah be with you sort of along your journey,
Do
really.
you? Can I ask you a question, Lewis?
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you, in what you're doing and where
yeah.
you're going and the stuff that you're doing, do you see yourself hurting or being destructive to anyone in your journey and what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve?
Destructive at anyone, as in like negatively bad towards people.
Yeah.
No, I don't see. I want to help people rather than take away from them. So that's not
So
my yeah.
your message is positivity.
Yeah, it's sort of it's pro bettering yourself, pro sort of like self improvement and trying to
Yeah.
become a better you, to improve your mental health, to improve the circumstances that you're in, to improve the bad things that happen to you in your life or whatever it may be.
So it's it's interesting because I know we touched on the spirit. You might have haters. You've got to you got to you got to question why would they not like your message? Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Because you're not hurting yourself, and you're not hurting other people around you, and you're not being destructive to anyone. If anything, your message
Mm,
is positive, and that you're
mm,
trying to use your own journey as motivation and inspiration for
yeah,
others. That's only a good message.
yeah,
It's a bad message for people who probably find it challenging
yeah. That's
and
yeah.
don't have a great relationship with themselves
Mm,
and probably know that but
yeah.
don't want to face that.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing. That's the
and
part that makes people hate, I think, when they see someone kind of doing something similar to kind of what they want to do, or they're doing well for themselves, and people don't really want to see that to some degree. Some people do, of course, but like
mm,
some people that are in terrible situations, and like sympathy out to people that are in horrible situations. But when you tell someone that they can change their circumstances, or like it's you can change things, you have responsibility for yourself, and kind of your attitude towards those things, and people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they have somewhat responsibility over. They want to sort of put the control in other people's hands, you know. So I think that's when the hate comes
yeah,
in, when the people have that mentality of like, you're wrong. I can't start training because I have this or I have that or don't have enough time or I can't afford to eat clean. There's lots of excuses that will come into to that,
yeah.
so which makes people hate. But
And that's like once again, we come back to that. Unfortunately for young men, and I mean, as you're probably aware, and I'm sure if you haven't been touched by it, but obviously the unfortunate amount of young male suicide,
it's
or
crazy.
and not just young males. I mean, there's males my age. And
Hmm.
I've lost people that I know
Oh
to
shit.
suicide, males, and that's everyone's wanting to change that mental health space for
Hmm.
men in regards to dealing with
Hmm.
suicide, and um, mental strength,
Hmm.
if you want, building mental strength. But that's the message that you're sending is about you need to be investing in yourself,
Hmm.
and part of that is via fitness
Yeah.
and improving your physical being,
Hmm.
which obviously, as you well know, improves
Everything
your
else.
head
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
headspace. Do you know what I mean? And I honestly believe that fitness and exercise is a massive part of that. Do you know what I mean? And that message of reaching out to your mates and all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff, and depression and understanding
Hmm.
that, I think exercise is a massive part of that.
Yeah.
And it's easy to reach out to your mates, when they're not in good places. But to be honest with you, Lewis, when they're in a bad space, they're the last people they want to, you're the last person they want to be talking to because
Yeah.
they feel that shit about how they feel and where their headspace is.
Hmm.
Getting on the phone and ringing someone and talking about it is probably the last thing on their mind. I
Yeah.
don't want to talk to anyone about how shit I feel and how
Hmm.
worthless I feel. You know, um,
Hmm.
the message needs to come not at that stage. It's got to
Hmm.
sort of come before that, and then having those conversations when they, for whatever reasons, are in a good place. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Hmm.
And building that resilience and understanding what does it feel like? What are those triggers for them that set them off down that path? Because once they go down that path, they're not going to talk to you.
Hmm.
And suicide it's a silent killer because no one knows it's coming until it's there. Do you know what I mean? No one's some people do reach out for cries of help, and that's great if they do, but it's a lot of the time it just,
Mm.
it's thing, so, what I'm trying to say is that your message in terms of improving yourself like fitness and inspiration and so forth, and getting yourself good here
Yeah.
because your body's working well and you're on a good path, and you know how well you feel when you're eating well, and you're exercising, and you're doing the things that you love to do, and you're interacting with the people that you love.
Exactly.
All of that feeds in, and basically hopefully creates this beautiful healthy hub for you. And I just think that that's great. Like that's
100%.
that's amazing.
100%. I say to people as well, like with the fitness stuff, when you're training and you're getting in better shape, you've gone through a hard workout that you didn't really want to do, but you did it anyway. You start to feel proud of yourself and good for yourself, like for the first time ever almost. Sometimes you can be like, wow, I
Mm.
did that. I didn't feel like doing it, but I did it anyway. And I feel proud about how I'm looking and how I'm losing weight or I'm getting in better shape. It gives you that sort of stack of good feeling, I guess you could say. And it also, like you said before, it helps up there as well and sets
Yeah,
everything else
yeah.
for you.
I
Mm.
remember when I started working with a PT. This is actually going to be a bit funny. And he sort of said to me, Stu, do you often stand in front of the mirror naked and look at yourself? I go, "Oh, no, not a lot." He goes,
Man.
"Can I ask why?" And I go, "I don't know. It's pretty confronting, isn't it?"
Yeah,
And he's
that's
like,
funny.
"Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice for you to be able to stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself and
Crack
think,
a
wow,
smile almost. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like what I see. Like I
Yeah.
like what I see. A lot of um, it's pretty confronting to do. Do you know what I mean? For anyone, male or female, is to stand in front of a mirror and look at themselves
Mm.
and think, wow, do I like what I see?
Yeah.
You know, and I just remember him saying that to me. You know what I mean? He goes, like, wouldn't you? And it's one of the byproducts of obviously being fit and so forth, that you like to see what you see
Mm.
coming back, and I like myself. I like the way that it looks.
Mm.
I don't want to look like A, B, and C, D. I can't, because I don't have their body. I don't have their genes. But
Yeah.
I can potentially be the best version of myself
Mm.
and be happy with the way that I look.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So, if
So
you're able to look
important.
in front of a mirror and be happy about the way that you look and the way that you feel, that's a long way to good. That's a good
That's
place to
like
be
honestly
in.
a superpower, isn't it? To be able to be like fully have the respect for yourself and be like, wow, like you've done that yourself. There's no
Yeah,
cheats, there's no shortcuts. Like you've put in the hard work to give that. It's like a
yeah,
physical representation for yourself of like, okay, I've put in the hard work, I've put in the discipline, I've done this, I've done that,
yeah,
I'm a form of consistency, if that makes sense. So it's
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
so
yeah. And
important, so
and
important.
no one's expecting you
To
to
be an
look
Arnold
back and see,
Schwarzenegger or
the
yeah.
ripped fitness model. It's not about that. You know
No,
what I
no,
mean?
no.
It's about being the best version of yourself. And you're like, yeah, I actually like what I see there. That's pretty cool. You know what I mean? I
100%.
that's just like, it's an overwhelming. It's just overwhelming to be able to stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself and then think, well,
Mm.
how do I feel about myself? Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, and if you don't like what you see coming back, then there's only one person that can change that, and that's you. And you know what
Exactly.
I mean? Like, otherwise you sort of carry around this sort of self hate a little bit. You
Mm.
know what I mean? And you know, resentment.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Resentment's
100%.
not a good thing. Resentment builds and festers and
It j-
comes out somewhere eventually. So yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to come on and talk to you, because
yeah,
I
yeah.
love your message, mate. I've
Thank you.
I've
Thank
watched your
you.
message, and I don't. There's nothing not to like about it. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because
Thank
you're
you.
ticking all these boxes, whether you know that you are or you aren't.
Mm.
They're good messages for young men. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
I
young
think so.
people in general. You know what I mean?
I
I
agree. I
mean,
agree.
that's not to mention what happens in the female world, which
Mm.
is just crazy on social media. It's
Mm.
just, yeah,
That's a whole nother discussion in itself. That yeah. It's
body shaming is
mm.
just, it's just horrific. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And unfortunately, people covet what they see every day,
Mm.
and if they keep looking at the same things, it's just It's not a good headspace, you know. If you're able to, like I said, if you're able to stand in front of the mirror and be happy with who you are and what you are, then that's great.
Awesome. So that's a very good goal to have, I think, is to be able to be like fully proud of yourself and be like, okay, yes, I've put in the hard work, I've done the
Yeah.
hard thing, I've done the yeah. I think it's giving yourself a very, very big level of confidence as well in your ability and
Mm,
in your
mm,
self-respect and
mm.
all that good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And you
Yeah.
know, like it's funny, you know, like I've treated my fair share of bodybuilders over the world. I mean, over the world, over my time.
Yeah.
You know, and they're obviously physique based. You know what I mean? So they're very, very
Focused on.
you know, it's hard to be a bodybuilder. They're extraordinarily disciplined. Do you know what I mean? And they critique themselves on like daily levels. They're standing in front of the mirror, looking at themselves, and people would probably say, "Well, it's a lot of vanity," but
Yeah.
the pursuit of what they're doing is like, okay, well, I need to change this, this, and this, and do this and do that. Do you know what I mean? And they literally do. You know, that's what they do. They sculpt and da da da, and it's not everyone can do that because not everyone can have that obsession. Or that, sorry, not that obsession, that discipline that goes into the food and the workouts and do you know what I mean? There's so much that goes into that. And, you've got to understand too that, when they get up on stage, those physiques that they come up on stage, they're not sustainable. They're sustainable for a couple of hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
when they get shredded and so forth, so once again, that perception of seeing people in shredded physiques and stuff like that as,
not reality.
maybe there'd be
It's not
2% of the population be able to carry, less than 5% body fat.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
But that's not sustainable. So once again, it's about not comparing yourself to that elite end.
Right.
I mean, if that's a road you want to go down, go for it. You know what I mean? But God, that's a rabbit hole that you've got to be really dedicated and disciplined to do. But once again, it's coming back at being the best version of yourself that you like. That you go, you know what? I'm happy with that. I'm looking good. You know what? I'm fit. I'm healthy. I'm doing this. People in my life I love, and people that make me feel good, and I love the message I'm spreading, and that's gold.
Awesome, Stuart. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I thought I'd leave it there. We could talk about this for hours. I'm sure we could, but
I know, mate. I know. I'm sorry. I can waffle on.
No, you're good. You're good. You're a good guest to have on. It's good. They should actually give in in-depth answers rather than just surface level stuff. So yeah.
Oh, wouldn't it be shit if I just gave you one-word answers?
Oh, it would be harder for me. It would make my job much harder. Yeah.
Have you? Sorry, do you mind if I ask if you have you had guests on sometimes where they struggle to give you, or they're just short, sweet answers, and you're like, oh shit, right, okay.
What's next? What do I ask next? Yeah. I never know how many questions to ask because some questions you could say you've got 10 questions, but it could take someone half an hour to answer them. It could take someone 3 hours to answer, so it's very hard to know. But
I know.
You have to just kind of guesstimate and sort of think, okay, what could I ask? How do I make this question answer longer? But yeah.
You know what? Once again, the more you do this, the better you get at it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And you're awesome, mate. I've done my fair share of interviews, webinars, and podcasts, and mate, you're nailing it. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
And
I've got a long way to go, but yeah.
Well, no. And the other thing is, it's natural. Like you do it naturally, which is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Not everyone can do that. Naturally. Do you know what I mean? Sure. So there can always be awkward moments.
Yeah. For sure.
You'd be like, hang on, what was I thinking? You know what I mean? It's like, 100%. Oh shit. Yeah. All right, so I have to edit that.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome, Stuart. Thank you very much. It was awesome to have you on. I'm sure we'll have more chats in the future as well.
And, by all means, mate, if there's something that resonates and you want to reach out, I'd be more than happy. I just thank you for having me on, and I'm loving where you're going and what you're doing, mate. So yeah, just remember,
thank you very much.
Consistency is the key, mate. That's the way to go.
100%. Awesome, Stuart. All right, Stuart. Take care. Mate. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be awesome.
See you later.